Go where your best prayers take you, unclench the fists of your spirit and take it easy. Breathe deeply of the glad air and live one day at a time. Know that you are precious and learn to trust. Amen. Well, good morning to all of you. A little ring in my thing might turn me down a bit or recalibrate me. Thank you. I want to do a shout out this morning, and hopefully our television reception was not good last week. Hopefully it's good this week. This morning, today, right now, Mary Alice Turney is 103 years old. Is that awesome? And she's not as spry as used to, but her mind is crystal clear. And she keeps up with us. Many of you probably don't watch. We have lots of people who watch. In fact, we're revisiting our whole media, our television production. And she tunes in every week, keeps up the prayers. She was asking lots of questions. Anyway, a shout out to her. I hope she and her family have a wonderful day today. Another thing, if you did not make it to Ash Wednesday, it's okay. You can do communion this morning, take communion, and then we will impose ashes for you in the chapel. So right after communion, go over and receive ashes if you missed that on Wednesday day. And then one other announcement, you got an insert. I'm not going to go through all this, I promise. But next Sunday, we're going to do something really, really fun. And I know it's the beginning. For many of you, you'll be traveling with your kids, doing spring break. But the rest of you, want you to come. We're going to have a great time. We're going to celebrate and dedicate the new music suite. You're invited Friday night to an open house, and then Sunday morning, the Sanders family, Jim and Sally's kids will be with us, and the Haslams, thankfully, are going to fly them up here so they can get here first thing in the morning. Then we're going to really celebrate that new space, have a reception afterwards. I hope you're ready to enjoy the day. The music suite has meant so much for the choir, and now they are meaning ever more and more to us. So just lots of good things going on. Hope you're enjoying this weather. Yesterday, it was a great day, and I had a lot planned, and then this little, I don't know, she's about 24 pounds came by, and that just interrupted my day. Baby Andy girl came by the house, and Lois and I took her over to the park and just had the best time outside with tons of kids playing, chasing, running, and it reminded me of what a blessed place we live in. Isn't it fabulous? I mean, it really is. We need to keep it a secret, to keep everybody away. But you know, East Tennessee is just amazing. And the day was it was a little cool, but just wonderful. And to be so near so many outdoor places like Imes, the new biking track that is being built all around us, and then the national park in our backyard. And I know many of you do get out and really use the outdoors. Well, you see, that's where we are drawn today, isn't it? In a very simple way. We are drawn to this wilderness experience of Jesus. So I've got a story for you, a really wonderful story. The man's name is Alex. Alex is a businessman. He runs a plant. He is also the father of a preteen, and he is the scout leader, one of the scout leaders. And he was taking their scout troop on a hike in the park that is near where they live. And as you know, one of the reasons to take scouts out is to get out in the wilderness, out in nature, but it's also to skill build, right? Learn about maps, learn about leadership, learn about all the kind of nature conservancy. There are lots of things. Among them is also learning to hike together. So if you've ever hiked, you know it may sound simple, but getting 8, 10, 12 people to stay together and do it kind of without going fast and then slow and fast is not easy. And Alex had faced this before, and he said, I'm going to work on this. So when they got out, got started hiking, he decided he would put the fastest hiker in the front. He said, surely everybody will keep up, will make it to camp on time, because invariably their troop was always late. It's after dark, they're trying to set up camp and cook. Well, what happened was the fastest kid took off, and then they got all spread out. They couldn't see each other, which is against protocol. They were accordion, they go fast, go slow, and finally he stopped him. He thought, that's not working. And he really was on a mission to try to absorb this. So he got all the kids together, got the boys together, and he said, all right, we're going to line up fastest to slowest. Y'all decide. And the boys did that. And counterintuitively, this really is counterintuitive, he put the slowest boy in the front. And guess what happened? They went faster. They stayed together. Not that kind of accordion, bump, bump, bump. They just kind of paced themselves. They spread out. They were right on point. And they actually picked up speed. And then Alex, started paying attention to the slowest hiker up front. It's the smallest boy in their troop. And so what he did, he thought his name was Herbie, and he thought, I need to do something about this. So what he did was, Herbie's the smallest kid, the skinniest kid. He said, I need to get some things out of his pack, which he did. He redistributed his gear, his food, with the other boys. Then they really picked up speed. And he learned right there that he had stumbled onto an incredibly invaluable insight. Not about hiking, although it applies, not just about scouting, but about himself and about life. You see, Alex realizes at that point that if he wants to be more efficient, if he wants to be more directed toward the goal he's trying to reach, if he wants to stay more together, more in sync, more in rhythm, then he needs to identify, in his words, the slow hiker inside of himself. Just hang on to that for a second. He has to identify the slow hiker in himself. So rather than working harder and faster, kind of grabbing one thing and another, he realized he needed to focus a little more. And then it hit him exactly what he had learned, which is hard for you. I promise you. We were talking about this at clergy. This is really hard when you're young because you're grabbing so many things. Those of us who are a bit older, we're trying to get rid of things and it may speak to us more easily. You realize what he realized. We all need to take things out of our pack. Every person. That's the way to get to where you want to be. It is counterintuitive. That is not what secular culture teaches you and me. It teaches us to have more and more and more. It is both physical and deeply metaphysical. And I'm purposely going a little slow so you can think this through with me. This is a conversation. I want this to be a conversation. So what is it, if you ask yourself, what is it in your pack that is weighing you down? What are you carrying that you do not need anymore? It may not be yours to carry to begin with. Most of us assign ourselves a lot of stuff to carry. It's not yours to carry to begin with. What would that be? And maybe, carry that through this day with you. What are those things that keep you up at night? Interrupt the flow of life. I promise you, when you core down, and again, I'm going slow. I want you to, I know, it's Sunday morning, I'm there too. Kind of think a little more deeply. I realize I think it's this anxiety about this. When I reflect on it and start drilling down, it's way deeper. It's attached to way other things. Always the things that keep me up. What keeps you from living the way you wish? What keeps you from being the true person that you are, or the person you wish to be? What keeps you from being in sync with the people around you? You realize we are all in those categories. The youngest to the oldest of us here. All of us are in those places. Well, if you don't know, or if you're like me, most of the time I have a vague idea of what it is I'm carrying, then you know what? Maybe it's time to take a hike. Maybe it's time, like Jesus, to go to the wilderness. Do you see, that's what this story really is about. Jesus goes to the wilderness by himself to be with himself. Jesus goes to the wilderness to be by himself, with himself. And we know what he does. It's not mysterious. He's alone. He thinks. He prays. It says that he fasts from food. And it gives him an opportunity to do what, do you think? To really think. To really reflect. To really look. And where's he looking? Right here. The looking is here at himself. You see, he is, in those words of the Temptations, struggling with what you and I struggle with. And I invite you to use those temptations to think about what they might be for you. Not temptations, but let's use my word this morning, the things that might burden us and keep us from where we want to go. You see, maybe Jesus is simply for himself, that bread is self-sufficiency. I don't need anybody, I make it myself. Maybe that business of, you can throw yourself down. Really, I'm so powerful, I don't need anything but my own self to do this. And what about owning everything? It's all yours. What's it like when you're in that place? When it's all mine. It's all about me. Do you see, they're common things. But work a little bit, think about it. No one has a corner on what this experience means. But it was deeply personal for Jesus. And very simply, he takes some things out of his pack. He puts them down so that he can be the person he wants to be. He can live the life he wants to lead. He can serve the way he will choose serving. Remember, this is a spiritual story with deep psychological implications. This has psychological implications that I won't try to unpack for you. It's for us to do the work ourselves. But there is no doubt this is a spiritual story. Do you understand? If he is to be the God-man, what kind of God-man will he be? If you are to be a God person, what kind of God person will you be? What kind of God child are you raising? It's a common question. We ask it today. Jesus was asking it for himself. You see, the story is strategically important. Our greatest temptation, from the youngest to the oldest, the greatest temptation is always to hold on to perceptions and motivations and old habits that we no longer need, that maybe didn't serve us well to begin with, but it doesn't matter. We hold on to them, and they prevent us from being and serving the kind of people we wish to be. They keep us from being the God person that God hopes that we will be. That's what this is all about. So, what can you put down? I promise you can unpack the pack. I can too. But maybe, just maybe, you're going to have to do a little walking by myself. Just a little, to get away from all the distractions. Oh my gosh, do I have them? Just put a few down. Jesus did, and we can. It's never too late. Literally, never too late. And I would also say never too early to get to the bottom of your pack. So I want to tell you about a 10-year-old. His name, is Rich. And Rich is in his bedroom, and Rich gets under his covers and pulls them up and tries to pile the pillows on top of himself again to block out the sound of the argument that is happening in the living room. His father drinking heavily again. Mom and Dad are fighting. Mom is pleading. Dad is screaming. And this 10-year-old, at 10 years old, has a thought that he doesn't realize becomes a decision, that he lives forward strongly. And the thought is this: my parents can't take care of me. I better make it on my own. And he sets his course to do just that. When he is in primary school, elementary school, he is a great student. But he's more serious than the other kids, and everybody notices it. He is after something. By the time he's in 7th grade, being a poor kid, he has already set his sights. He is already writing off for college catalogs from every Ivy League school and already mapping what it will take for him to get there and get a scholarship, period. The other kids around him are clueless why he acts the way he does, but he acts this way. He studies hard, he works hard, and yes, his play is hard all the time. He must keep up, in order to succeed. And he is doggone good at it. He gets a scholarship after high school to Cornell. Again, he studies hard. He has to have several part-time jobs to make ends meet. And he gives himself one extravagance. Literally, he plays volleyball with a bunch of boys, and he's recruited them because they're all kids like himself who come from the poor side of the tracks. And they win the University Cup in volleyball, which is a big deal. And he's beaten out all the fraternity boys. You catch it? This is deep inside of him. Just rest with it. This story is deep inside of him. His grades are fabulous. He is drop dead smart as all get out and a great boy. He gets a full ride to Wharton on scholarship to earn his MBA. And there, thankfully, he meets the love of his life, Renee. And they connect. They have a little bit of church stuff, but they connect very deeply, kind of around church. It's important to her. It becomes more important to him. And he really does become very devout, but in a very quiet way. Not showy, not flashy, because you understand he is driven for one thing, success, and he is going to be successful. He gets out of Wharton, gets his first job, second job, third job, and he is flying. By the time he is 33, so all the young folks, I know I'm old, but listen to this, 33, he's the CEO of Parker Brothers, the game and toy manufacturer. And he is doing great. 10 years later, he is the CEO of Lennox China and Crystal Corporation. And he is doing even better. He's got all the perks. He's got a great family, by the way, loving wife. There's nothing wrong with where he is. He has a great life. But for him, for Rich, there is something just missing just a little bit. And he knows it. He can't quite figure out what it is. Something's off. There's stuff keeping him up at night. He cannot figure out what it is. It just hangs with him. So he decides, after some more years, maybe I'm just kind of burned out. Maybe I'll just move to Boca Raton and play golf. So that's what he tells his wife. And she's laughing. She said, "You're an idiot. You can't move to Boca Raton." He said, "Yeah, we can afford it. I don't ever have to work." She said, "That's not the point. You need a mission." He said, "What did you say?" She said, "You've got to have something. You've got to have a mission." He just shakes his head. He doesn't know what she's saying. But he starts to do some work. I'm not sure he would say it this way. When you read the story, I can see him fit this gospel. He kind of did a little wilderness walk. He gets with some people. He starts doing some reflection about his life. He works hard at his story. He works hard at his story to try to line up where he's been, why he's been, what he's been, and how they connect. In other words, he connects the dots. Not easy to do. Marvelous, marvelous thing. And guess what? Out of the blue, literally out of the blue, as life would have it, or maybe as God would have it, he gets a call. And it's from World Vision. And they say, "We kind of know about you, and we're wondering if you want to be our CEO." And he says, "What?" He said, "I've got a day job. It's a really good day job. Thank you for calling." And, as a friend of a friend of a friend, he said, "Let me look you up." Well, what he finds out is World Vision is one of the top Christian relief organizations in the world. Not the top, but pretty high up there. Pretty powerful organization, but going through a lot of change, needs a lot of help. But they won't leave him alone. They keep calling him. They say, "Just come for an interview." So he goes for an interview. Well, amazingly, he really does pray over it. He wrestles with it. And then all of a sudden, with all the connecting the dots, this kind of then concludes connecting the dots. He calls him back. He says, "I don't know why I'm saying yes, but I'll say yes." So he goes from leading marketing strategies to sell china and porcelain to how to end AIDS in Africa. And Rich says of his life now, he says, Rich Stearns says, "This is the fulfillment of who I was created to be." This is the fulfillment of who I was created to be. And now, under his leadership over the last years, and I'm not quite sure if he's still the CEO, some of you may know, World Vision grew to be the largest Christian outreach organization in the world and every corner of the world. You know, you and I are not called to world vision. That's not the point of the story. You are called to your vision. You are called to your vision. And just like sweet Mary Alice Turney, turning 103 today, to the youngest child here, you have a future. She does, you do, I do. We are being called into our future all the time. Maybe we start, Jesus says, by thinking about our faith. Really thinking about our spirituality, not last, but maybe it doesn't have to be first, but what if it were in the middle? To begin some spiritual conversation that is lasting, important, helps you and me connect the dots. And then maybe we also begin to put some things down that we no longer need to carry. What is in your backpack? What doesn't need to go with you anymore? And then maybe we let God take us along to that future. We trust that there's a process in place. You see, if it's never too late to start this, never, maybe the way to start is to go take a hike. Amen.